at a young age. Because sometimes you can't teach old dogs new tricks. You got to train them while they're young. You got to teach them while they're young. You can't expect, because you know how you are, something you've been hammered in and hammered on about, and you realize that the truth is told, but it's hard for folk to change their ways.
All right, go ahead.
Parents should teach them at a young age. Not only to teach them in what worship and worshiping God is about,
all right,
but not only should you teach them, but you should bring them to it.
All right.
Well, they're not often going to come on their own, but you should bring them to the worship experience, and not get away from the days where we ask them, "Do you want to go?"
All right.
Or are you going today? And they say, "I don't want to go," and you say, "Good, I'm not going either." That child, and then there's all kind of excuses. And I look at our youth departments and youth movements today. I see more youth on the news in killings and parties. That's because parents have ceased to bring their children to church. They've ceased to provide a place where they could go. And I might add right along in here, Hannah not only brought her child to church, but she left him there. A good place to leave your children. You want to keep them out of trouble, many times bring them to the church. Parents should not only teach them in the ways of the Lord, but you should bring them to the ways of the Lord. And then put them on the duty of performing best they can.
All right,
the truth that you have taught them. They may lessen the amount of time that they break your heart. So, therefore, if all of this is true, then the son of the text today represents the promise that is contained with each one of us. Within each one of us, there lies a dormant hope that is manifest at the conception and birth of a child. There's a hope that every mother ought to have within her child, that this child won't be a drug dealer.
All right.
That this child will not be a prostitute and be listed on the street, but this child would be birthed to bring salvation and light to many who are in darkness.
All right.
This comes by way of the Holy Spirit, who serves to give the duty. And so today, this sermon I bring to you, it will examine the story of a woman and the birth of Samuel and how the mother's love is portrayed in her duties and action. Samuel will be a prophet from whom not one word he spoke dropped to the ground.
All right.
That's the prayerful petition of every mother. It ought to be every mother, that your children don't just grow up to be rich,
all right,
but they grow up in the admonition of the Lord.
All right.
So conceiving and giving birth is usually a picture of the process of the believer coming into their promise. And it is interesting to know that 9 months is symbolic of the pregnancy period, but also 9 months was the period of Job's trials.
All right.
And so while joy may come at the end, there's weeping during that period. This woman is barren. This woman is barren, have no children.
Right.
But she gives birth, she prays, and she gives birth. And I want to use verse 24 to teach us today how a mother's love is played out. So 3 things about this text I want to give you. Number 1, if you really want to show love of a mother, do these 3 things. First thing she did was wean the child. She weaned the child. She kept the child with her and provided for him through her own body. She weaned the child. And Now, let me back up before she gave birth. I need to tell you that proper prenatal care is very, very important.
All right, go ahead.
The reason it is important to get prenatal care is because the child feeds from the intake of the parent, of the mother. And if you don't have good stuff that you're putting in you, your child is going to get what you have taken in. And even the Surgeon General warns mothers who are expecting that that smoking and drinking can do damage to your unborn child. And now Hannah weaned the child. She breastfed this child, and the child got whatever Hannah had.
All right.
And so that is the benefit, my brothers and sisters. When the mother breastfeeds, she's got to wean him. But don't wean him without knowing that whatever you have in you, the child gets in him or her. So many babies are born crack babies and never had a crack pipe up to their mouth because of whatever the mother took in. And many children today are suffering because while the mother was with child, she took some stuff in that she should not have taken. And it's harder to break a child, to wean a child, when the child comes addicted. Child comes addicted. You're mighty quiet in here, but I guess I'll just preach to me. So while being sufficiently warned by the Surgeon General, many women ignore the warning and do not heed the warning, and as a result, babies are born with birth defects. Babies are born addicted. And mothers today, I need to warn you that you need to be careful even in the spiritual realm about breastfeeding your children, because they may get just what you got in you. And if you've got some hatred in you, you might just pass that on to the child. If you have some nasty ways in you, it may just be passed on to the child. Often children are messed up because their mothers are messed up. And today, before she weaned the child, I want you to know that it's important that you give and you take the good stuff in so you don't pass it along to the child. The text says she weaned him. And until you wean the children, you got to know that they're getting what you have inside of you. And in a spiritual sense, mothers, your job is to make sure that you're feeding children with wholesomeness. To make sure that you're feeding children with love. To make sure you're feeding children with compassion. To make sure you're feeding children with general care, love, and affection. You cannot feed the children stuff that's no good for them. You need to feed them stuff that's going to help them grow. And again, I speak by way of a spiritual sense. Many of our children, you can't tell them anything because that's what their mothers fed them when they were yet children and unweaned. The reason you got to be careful about what you say to somebody's child, and the child cuss you out because the parent will cuss you out. And you try to correct them. So you got to beware that even when you go home tonight, and while you're talking about Sister Mary and Brother James, whatever you are feeding the child, whatever you are taking in, when those tender ears are near you, hearing what you say, you are feeding the child the same garbage that you ate earlier today. So how then can you expect the children to be straightened up when you are giving them junk? Now, so much anger and hatred is in the mother that they pass it on
Yeah.
to the children. And warning, because many have damned the daddy so that the children grow up hating the fathers because you're feeding them your own hatred. And isn't it funny though, the daddy ain't no earthly good, but you still with it.